know, that sort of thing.
Right.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Talk about something else.
Tom Cruise is back in the rumor mill that he's up for the role of Green Lantern.
Yes.
Yes, he's too old.
He is far too old. What are they thinking about?
I love Tom Cruise. The last Mission Impossible film, what was it, Fallout?
Fallout, yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was amazing.
Like, I mean, at the same time, like, completely shattered the life out of his ankle doing stunts and everything. Yeah. I mean, the guy's clearly mental. He's running on magic unicorn fuel at this point. But now that he wants to play... But I think what they're doing with the Green Lantern movie is that it is still that idea that they came out with a few years ago. It's Green Lantern Corps. Yeah. Or Green Lantern Corps or whatever it is. So it's basically... It's an aged Hal Jordan teaching... forgotten his name now. He's my favourite Green Lantern. John Stewart, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you think... Apparently, the rumour is that he is very interested in playing Green Lantern, but he wants a change made to the script.
Oh, no.
Now, apparently the change is... But again, this is all hearsay. Apparently the change is that his character has been written in to die.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, which would lead me to believe that maybe he's not Hal Jordan. Maybe he's Abor... what do you call him?
Abor's son or
Abor's son.
Something,
yeah, the character that introduces Hal Jordan to the Lantern Corps.
Yeah.
But... Is there a possibility that they're going to go down that road where you meet Green Lantern like we did with Ben Affleck's Batman and Batman v Superman as an older character, as an over-the-hill character?
Maybe.
Do you know, but would that be silly to start your best characters as old men?
I don't know, because, again, as I was saying to you folks in the car on the way up here tonight, it's this great idea that DC sort of have, and I don't think they've managed to sort of nail it down yet, but I think we'll hopefully see it in the next couple of years, where if you introduce your characters as aged and beaten and worn down, then you can have this kind of floating timeline.
Yes.
Where you can then set movies in the past where they're at their prime and tell the story of how they became the characters that they are when we first introduced them. Because it's kind of the equivalent of, do you know when you watch a good suspense movie and they always play a bit of the end right at the start and then the flashback to show you how the characters ended up there. Yeah. It's kind of like that, but on a grander scale.
Funny, because myself and my kids are working on this wee comic strip in the house that we're doing ourselves, and, you know, my son, who is such a stickler for detail, he's like, right, who are these characters? Why have they got these abilities? Why is their hair this colour? And I'm like, look...
You're 10.
We'll start with the character, and if we get to the point where we're progressing the story, then we can take all that information in. And it's kind of... Because, Anthony, you were saying this tonight about how your big gripe with Justice League was that it was just like, oh, here's Flash, here's Cyborg, here's Aquaman, here's... You know, and we hadn't met them before. But this is what we're saying. DC are sort of setting up this... These characters are here. We'll worry about how they got here later.
Well, I think it offers a bit more freedom whenever it comes to... telling stories, because
it's clever because they can tell, as we're saying earlier on, Ben Affleck might not come back for the Batman, but we could get Jake Gyllenhaal, for example, to be the younger Batman, and it's still in continuity.
Yeah, and you can set it in the 80s, and that's basically Batman Year One.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is clever. I actually think it is really clever. And Marvel are doing it to a certain extent this year with Captain Marvel, only they're CGI-ing their characters.
Yeah, well, see, Marvel seem to have this sort of love affair now with that technology that de-ages actors.
Yeah. Which, in fairness, looked amazing in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
It's come a long way since Jeff Bridges and Tron Legacy. Like, I'll tell you that much now. Like,
I love Tron Legacy, but every time that young Jeff Bridges walks on screen, I'm like, I might.
Nightmare Fuel. But no, like, they've sort of started to do it that way. But then it kind of... It's like a whole big load of rubber bands all kind of, like, merged and mixed together now, where you can't... Like, you have certain key events that take place in the MCU, and you can't afford any overlap with that.
Yeah.
Whereas with DC, if they do it the way that we're sort of thinking that they're going to do it, it offers up so much more creative freedom.
Yeah.
Because, yes, a lot of people criticize Batman v Superman because Batman's this broken old man, Robin's dead, and he has the suit in the Batcave. But you're never told why. You're never told why he's like that. But I think that's a good thing, because that means that, say, for example, if there was a line in Batman v Superman about how Robin died and about how this happened and how all this went down and how he became this broken old Batman that he is now, it kind of means that whenever you go back to tell that story, you're constrained by what was said in that.
Yes.
And if you do something different, the fans will go, well, hang on, that doesn't make sense, because in Batman v Superman, he said this, that, and the other. So it's what really leads me to believe that what DC are trying to do, and it doesn't really work so well in the context of movie making, and that's why you end up with polarized reviews and stuff, is that they are trying to take that comic book route of No, there's a bad thing. It happened years ago. We don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And then eventually you get the flashback issue that tells you exactly what it was.
I think it's a good idea. I honestly think it's a good idea. I do like the idea. And I do think it's great as well because it means that you can go and see a movie and it's not always necessarily going to be the same actor and it's not going to be the same. You know, and I do like this idea as well that we can see a Batman that's part of the Justice League, but we can see him when he's on his own and there's no Justice League. I think it's. Yeah. I do like that idea. I think they can do great things with that.
Because obviously, if you were to do it the same way that the Marvel Cinematic Universe are doing it, and fair play to them, it works for them. Mm-hmm. But if you do it that way, it'll take you years to get to the point. Like if you're doing it linear, like in a linear timeline, it'll take you years to tell that story.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're going to do it where you can have movies that flash back and movies that take place in different places. I mean, we're starting to see it already with Wonder Woman 84.
Yes.
So
we're going to talk a wee bit about that later on.
We'll talk about that later on, but like my point is, the first movie is set in World War One. Mm-hmm. The second movie is set in 1984. Nothing is stopping the third movie from taking place in the 50s during the Cold War.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, so you can have that floating timeline where things take place wherever you want them to be, and it's basically like picking up your old collection of comic books and going, I remember that was a good issue, and you read it out of continuity.
Another thing that I like about what the DC movies have done as well is that the Marvel movies, I mean, we've got to a point now where there's gods and there's aliens and there's all sorts of things, but it took them sort of 10 years to build up to all that, whereas the DC movies were straight into a world of gods and monsters, which I liked as well. I thought that was really good. They didn't waste any time setting up all this sort of stuff. It's all in there, deal with it, we'll get to it.
Yeah, exactly, but I think it's the fact that they tried to treat their audience smart.
Yeah.
They tried to go, look, we know you know this stuff. We know that months before this movie comes out, you're on Reddit, you're on social media, coming up with your own theories and plans and things like that. So when it gets to the point where you're sitting in the cinema and the lights turn off and the movie begins, you're sitting through 5 or 10 minutes of exposition of, who's Darkseid, who are the parademons, who's this, who's that, who's the other. Whereas in Batman v Superman, Zack Snyder went, okay, dream sequence, there's parademons.
Yeah. And the fans are all going, injustice! And everybody else is like, where's this going? And I do like that. Right. Yeah. This is an interesting one. I want to talk to you about this as well, because I know Marvel is your big thing.
That's kind of my bag, yeah.
That's kind of your bag. Now, we have the Venom movie coming out in like a month and a half.
Unfortunately, we do, yeah.
And I got to be honest with you, I'm not excited for it. I'm really not. And I like Tom Hardy. I like the character of Venom. 10 years ago, if somebody had told me 20 years ago when I was a kid, if I had been like, oh my god, there's a Venom movie coming, I would have been really, really excited. But Spider-Man 3 made a complete hames of the character. This one doesn't look like it's done any better, but that's not really what I want to talk about.
No.
Because the whole thing behind the new Venom movie was that it looked like it was going to be scary, it was going to be gory, it was going to be a real adult,
like a proper R-rated sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah, and
like, kind of like Blade did back in
exactly.
20 years ago, yeah.
Yes. So, now, taking that, so that was going to be made by Sony. And it wasn't going to be part of the MCU, which is the Marvel movie. So the Spider-Man that we know, Tom Holland Spider-Man, isn't going to feature in Venom.
No.
Now, I got to be honest with you, I didn't entirely buy into that. Because I honestly think that there's connections between it. Now, I wrote a big piece a couple of months ago about how there's going to be connections and stuff like the Silk. Sony are working on a Silk movie, and the character has already been in Homecoming, and the Scorpion is supposed to be in Silver and Black, which is a Sony movie, but it's going to be the same actor that played him in Spider-Man Homecoming. So I always sort of believed that there was going to be a connection there, and Tom Holland was spotted on the set of Venom, which led people to believe that maybe Spider-Man was going to be in the Venom movie.
Yeah, or even just for a cameo or something like that, just to tie these universes together.
Exactly. So a couple of weeks ago, about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, Sony gave a talk about the movie and sort of some of the details, and they revealed that they're going to be cutting back on the gore, on the unpleasantness of the movie.
Uh-huh.
And the reason that they're going to do that is because they are leaving it open for Spider-Man to appear.
Wonderful.
So, basically what they're saying is that even though this is a Sony movie, it is going to eventually connect to the MCU. And I think we knew that was going to happen, didn't we?
Yeah, it was kind of like a fear that I had.
Really?
Where, like, because I mean, this is giving me the vibes that the Fantastic Four trailer gave me a couple of years back. Mm-hmm. For me, to get Venom right, you have to tell his proper comic book origin.
Yes.
Not all this nonsense from the rebooted series or whatever. Tell the original classic story. Like, originally, whenever I saw that Spider-Man 3 was coming out, and it was show the promotional image of him wearing the black suit, mm-hmm. I went, they're doing the Venom saga?
Yeah.
Oh my god, brilliant! And I thought, this makes sense because in Spider-Man 2, they set up that the guy that Mary Jane was going to marry, J. Jonah Jameson's son, he's an astronaut.
Yes.
So imagine that, right? And I don't think we ever got his name or anything like that, but imagine he was called Eddie something, because this was before they went super hardcore nerds with making the movies. So they could have mixed up characters and changed things around and what have you. So imagine he goes into space and he finds the symbiote. And then he comes back to Earth. He's jealous of Peter for taking Mary Jane. The symbiote gets on him. He becomes Venom. It makes so much sense. This is going to be great. And then, unfortunately, it didn't go that route. So, and then to see the trailer for this, where it just looks like a generic action horror movie starring Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
And it just, nothing about this screams Venom to me. Mm-hmm. And it's so sad, because I want to see the Tom Holland version of Peter Parker have to deal with the symbiote. What's that like in today's society? Yeah. What's that like when you have trolls on social media? When you have bullies at school that don't punch or kick you, but instead like mentally abuse you? How would that play into the symbiote storyline? What would the darker version of Tom Holland's Spider-Man be like? And then to see that him overcome that, only for it to land on Eddie Brock and for him to become Venom. Yep. That's a story I want to see. I'm desperate to see it done right on the big screen. And again, they're not giving the fans what they want. Yeah. So instead of that, it's like the symbiote's created in some lab. Somehow Tom Hardy gets it on him. And they're still doing that thing where half the face peels back to reveal the actor's face and all that. It's like, no, we don't want this. Yeah. We want proper Venom.
But it does also, I mean, to me, I haven't seen The Meg yet, but I'm getting the vibe from The Meg where even Jason Statham has said that he wasn't happy that The Meg was made as a hard R, gory movie, and then they toned it back for the kids. And apparently it's still a lot of fun. I haven't seen it. Have you seen it, no?
No, I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it yet. Apparently it's still a lot of fun. But I'm getting the feeling that, this movie is going to be sort of bastardized, if for lack of a better word.
It is, yeah.
For the sake. Now, I personally am excited for it. I'm a sucker for shared universes. I love the idea that Sony are going to have their other universe and it's going to tie in to the MCU. And to me, it'll be like the Netflix shows where it's sort of happening in the background, and even though it doesn't necessarily come right into the MCU, it's still happening in a corner of New York, or it's still happening.
But it's sort of the fact that it's so small compared to what these outlandish and fantastic characters in the movies do. Yeah. That it's not even on their radar. Yeah. It's just we're sort of like the cleanup crew. We clean up the smaller bad guys.
Yeah, and it's kind of what we were saying about with the Paul Feig interview last week as well. All they need to do is at some point have a reference to, Tony Stark, or have a reference to the events of Age of Ultron, anything at all. Just reference something in the movie, even just a throwaway line. And that the fans will be like, yes.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. It confirms it takes place in the same timeline. I'm losing my mind.
Do you know what I mean? Thor doesn't have to meet Venom. Iron Man doesn't have to meet Venom, but it can still take place. And I think that is what they're going to go with. I do think that eventually these movies are all going to just join into this one big sort of... Sony will do their own thing, Netflix will do their own thing, Disney will do their own thing, but they all exist in the same...
Well, that'll help out a lot more too whenever Disney eventually buys everything.
Everything, yeah.
So we'll have that big Monster Mash movie that I've been talking about wanting for years now. Yeah. Where it's just everything. You've Queen Elsa from Frozen taking on Venom. Just everything's all mashed together.
It's all, Okay, right. I think it's time to play the interview.
I think it is, yeah.
As we bigged it up at the start of the show. This week we talked to John C McGinley, who is an actor that has been in such great movies as Wall Street, Platoon, Point Break, Highlander 2.
I think it's safe to say we love Cox.
But, yeah...
Dr. Cox.
It's always it's the low-hanging fruit, isn't it?
Well, always, I mean, you're the one talking about Cox.
Right.
Dr. Cox.
But I think it's fair to say that he became best known for the role of Cox, I mean, even, a lot of people who I've spoken to, I said, we're interviewing John C. McGinley, and even my dad was like, who's that? And I've shown him the picture, he's like, oh yeah, your guy in the Scrubs.
Dr. Cox, yeah.
So, I hate you. Right.
I know.
Here's the big interview. Okay, I am Mark.
I am Saxon.
And you're listening to Bounce FM. This is the Following the Nerd Show, and we will be back right after this big interview.
Hi, it's Johnny C. McGinley from Stand Against Evil. You are following the nerds.
We have to say, we've always found that there was something strangely Irish about a lot of the characters you play.
I've been going to Ireland for the better part of my life, so none of that's by mistake.
I think that's maybe why we resonate so much with a lot of the characters that you play then.
Yeah.
Because it always seems to be like this sort of this guy that's almost kind of done with life and just wants to be left alone, but life keeps crashing in on top of him.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. And plus,